the last echo of Camp Blue Water in Cassandra, and one misty autumn evening, I journeyed with my daughter Aurora to Camp Blue Water, a secluded haven once bustling with summer laughter, but now shrouded in an unsettling quiet. The camp lay beside a vast, murky lake whose surface mirrored the dim glow of a waning moon. We set up our tent on a small knoll overlooking the water, the silence around us both inviting and foreboding. As night fell, the camp took on an eerie quality. The distant lapping of the water against the shore merged with the whispering wind, creating a symphony of sound that was both soothing and deeply unnerving. While Aurora and I sat by a dwindling campfire, I noticed ripples spreading across the lake, as though something beneath the surface stirred. A chill ran down my spine when I heard a faint, almost imperceptible hum, a mournful melody that seemed to emanate from the depths of the lake itself. Unable to ignore the pull of the unknown, I ventured closer to the water's edge, with Aurora following hesitantly behind. There, amid the fog and the soft glow of fireflies, I felt an inexplicable presence, a weight of sorrow and longing that seemed to emanate from the lake. "Mom, why does it feel like the water is calling to us?" Aurora asked, her voice small against the vastness of the night. I could only shake my head, feeling that some mysteries were meant to remain unsolved. The rest of the night passed in a blur of restless sleep and fleeting shadows. By morning, as the mist lifted and the first rays of sun revealed the camp in a new light, the haunting melody had faded, leaving behind only the lingering echo of its sorrow. Aurora and I packed our belongings in silence, each of us changed by the spectral experience at Camp Blue Water. The memory of that night of ghostly echoes and a lake that whispered secrets remains with me, as a reminder that sometimes the past refuses to let go, even in the quiet moments of our escape into nature. The vanishing campfire of Ophelia, and one chilly winter's evening, I ventured with my daughter Jasmine to a rugged camp nestled at the edge of a snow-covered forest. We built our fire outside our rugged tent, its orange glow offering a temporary sanctuary against the biting cold. The flames danced merrily, casting long, wavering shadows over the icy ground. As the night deepened, I began to notice something peculiar. Between bursts of laughter and whispered bedtime stories, a subtle change occurred. The fire's warmth seemed to wane inexplicably. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of a figure moving behind the dancing flames. It was as if the fire itself was trying to reveal a hidden presence. I leaned closer, heart pounding, only to see the figure vanish into thin air. "Mom, did you see that?" Jasmine asked, her voice trembling with a mix of curiosity and fear. I nodded, too stunned to speak, as an unexplainable chill crept over me. The fire's glow flickered erratically, casting phantom shapes that merged with the darkness. In the following moments, the night seemed to stretch into an endless expanse of uncertainty. The forest around us whispered with an otherworldly stillness, and the memory of that vanishing figure imprinted itself upon my mind. When morning came, the campfire had burned down to embers, leaving behind only a lingering sense of loss and the nagging feeling that we'd briefly crossed paths with something beyond our understanding. Now, whenever I sit by a fire, I remain alert to the possibility of unseen presences dancing in the shadows. Whispers in the woods see Miranda, and one late summer, I took my daughter Elise to a remote woodland camp. The site was a small clearing surrounded by towering oaks and whispering birches, where the night air was alive with the rustle of leaves and distant calls of nocturnal creatures. We pitched our tent under a sky streaked with twilight hues, eager for an escape from the ordinary. That night, as Elise fell asleep to the lullaby of nature, I found myself drawn to the edge of the forest. The wind carried soft, almost indistinguishable, whispers voices that seemed to murmur secrets too ancient to decipher. With each step I took, the voices grew clearer, though still elusive, as if trying to tell me something. I paused near a copse of trees, straining to catch every syllable, when a sudden gust silenced the murmurs, leaving a deafening stillness in its wake. Returning to camp, I discovered that Elise had awakened. "Mom, the trees are talking," she whispered, eyes wide, with a mixture of wonder and fear. I reassured her, though my own heart pounded with questions I couldn't answer. The next few hours were filled with moments of eerie silence, broken only by the rustling of leaves and the creaking of ancient branches. It was as if the forest itself was alive with memories of loss, of longing, of secrets too painful to forget. By dawn, the whispers had faded into the natural chorus of morning birds, yet their echo remained with me. I often wonder if the trees were speaking of forgotten tragedies or lost souls, seeking solace in the embrace of the woods. Elise and I left that camp with an unspoken understanding that the forest held mysteries beyond our reach, a silent pact between nature and those daring enough to listen. The midnight Halimizadora, and one autumn weekend, I brought my daughter Beatrice to a lakeside camp tucked away in a secluded valley. The camp was quiet, the air crisp with the promise of falling leaves and the scent of pine. We pitched our tent near a dark lake that mirrored the starry sky, and a gentle campfire provided our only comfort against the night's chill. At midnight, while Beatrice slept soundlessly in her sleeping bag, a sudden, spine-chilling howl shattered the calm. I was roused by the sound, a long, mournful cry that seemed to resonate from deep within the lake. My heart raced as I peered into the darkness beyond the firelight, the howl echoing off the distant trees. Compelled by both dread and maternal concern, I stepped outside with my lantern, calling softly for Beatrice. In the distance, under the full moon's gaze, I saw ripples on the lake stir, as though something was emerging. The haunting howl repeated, more desperate and sorrowful, sending shivers down my spine. I hurried back to the tent, rousing Beatrice. With a gentle shake, her eyes, still heavy with sleep, opened wide as I whispered, "Did you hear that, my dear?" She nodded silently, as if understanding a terror I couldn't fully explain. Throughout the night, the echo of that midnight cry haunted us, a spectral reminder of nature's unfathomable secrets. Even now, whenever the wind carries a distant howl, I wonder if the lake's sorrowful spirit still calls out for something lost long ago. The forgotten Tralim Adelaide, and one early summer, I took my daughter Lydia on a camping trip deep in the wilderness. We arrived at a remote clearing where a narrow, winding trail disappeared into an ancient forest. The day was warm, but as dusk settled, a cool mist crept in, transforming the familiar path into a shadowy passage of uncertainty. That first night, after setting up our small camp beside a trickling stream, Lydia and I huddled near a modest fire. The flames cast dancing figures on the bark of towering trees, and every rustle in the underbrush made my heart skip a beat. While Lydia dozed off beneath her woolen blanket, I sat awake, listening to the forest's chorus. It wasn't long before I noticed something, a faint, rhythmic tapping along the trail, as if unseen footsteps were pacing the woods. Unable to shake the disquiet, I quietly rose to investigate. With only a small lantern in hand, I followed the sound down the forgotten trail. Each step was accompanied by an eerie silence punctuated only by the occasional snap of a twig. At one point, I caught sight of a shadow moving in the corner of my Aja shape that vanished when I turned to look directly. My pulse thundered as I hurried back, the echo of that ghostly tap clinging to me. When I returned to camp, Lydia's wide, sleep-filled eyes met mine, as if questioning my absence. "Mom, were you walking with the trees?" she asked in a sleepy murmur. I forced a smile, though deep inside I wondered if the forest held memories of lost souls and hidden tragedies. Even now, whenever I wander near ancient trails, I feel that unspoken presence, a reminder that some paths are best left forgotten. Echoes in the mountain, Fogim Daphne, and I once took my daughter Violet to a mountain camp shrouded in an ethereal fog that seemed to blur the boundaries between the living and the spectral. The high-altitude air was crisp and invigorating, and the narrow trails wound their way through ancient groves and rocky outcrops. As we trekked along a winding path, the dense mist clung to us, turning familiar landmarks into ghostly apparitions. With every step, the forest revealed its hidden side whispers, carried on the wind, soft and sorrowful, as if the mountain itself was mourning a forgotten past. During one particularly silent stretch of our journey, a sudden gust of wind stirred the fog, and with it came a chorus of voices, barely audible murmurs that seemed to emanate from the very ground beneath our feet. "Do you hear that, Mom?" Violet asked, her wide eyes reflecting a mix of wonder and unease. I could only nod, struggling to reconcile the rational part of my mind with the inexplicable phenomenon unfolding around us. That night, when we sought refuge in a small, lantern-lit cabin, the voices returned. They seeped through the wooden walls and crept under the door, forming a spectral symphony of grief and longing as we lay in our creaking beds. The mournful echoes enveloped us, and every creak of the floorboards and every sigh of the wind seemed laden with ancient sorrow. The mountain, with its time-worn trails and secretive silence, had imprinted its melancholic history onto our souls. Violet's soft, anxious questions in the dark became a shared ritual, a quiet acknowledgement of the mystery that defied explanation. By dawn, as the fog began to lift and the mountain revealed its rugged beauty once more, I knew that the experience had changed us irrevocably. The echoes of that night still reverberate in my mind, a reminder that some mysteries are woven into the very fabric of nature, destined to haunt those who dare to listen. The cabin in the shadows. My name is Serena, and one crisp autumn, I journeyed with my daughter Lacey to a remote forest camp, famed for its long-abandoned cabana, structure whispered about in local lore for its eerie past. As twilight descended, the dilapidated cabin emerged from the gloom like a relic of another era. Its broken windows and sagging roof hinting at secrets best left undisturbed. With hesitant steps, we approached the weathered building, the crunch of fallen leaves underfoot, the only sound breaking the heavy silence of the forest onside. The cabin was cloaked in darkness and decay. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and forgotten memories. Lacey, both fascinated and fearful, wandered cautiously through the dim corridors, while I felt an inexplicable chill creeping along my spine. Every creak of the wooden floor and every rustle of unseen movement set my nerves on edge. As a storm gathered outside, lightning briefly illuminated the interior, revealing faded photographs and time-worn relics that spoke of lives long past. Later, that night, as the wind howled and rain battered the fragile walls, I was startled awake by the sound of soft footsteps echoing in a narrow corridor. Rushing to Lacey's side, I found her huddled by a frosted window, eyes fixed on a dark corner where shadows seemed to twist and merge into an unearthly form. "Mom, I think someone's here," she whispered, voice quivering like the tremble of a dying flame. My heart pounded as I stepped toward the source of the sound, each step filled with dread and a desperate need to protect my child. In that long, harrowing moment, the cabin's history seemed to press in around Usa, palpable sorrow and an unseen presence that defied explanation. I felt as if the very walls were imbued with the grief of lost souls, reaching out with spectral fingers to reclaim a part of their past. With trembling resolve, I led Lacey back to our tent, the echo of unseen footsteps following us into the stormy night. At first light, as the tempest subsided, we fled the cabin, its haunted legacy etched permanently into our memories. Even now, the recollection of that stormy night lingers, a reminder that some places harbor deep, unspeakable sorrow, waiting silently in the shadows for those brave enough to listen. The lake's lament. My name is Harper, and last summer I camped by a secluded lake with my daughter Fiona. Our little campsite, nestled on a crescent of land, where the water caressed the shore in gentle ripples, was a haven of tranquility. By day, we built a fire near the water's edge, its orange glow reflecting on the still surface and filling us with a warm sense of safety. But as dusk gave way to night, an unsettling quiet began to settle over the lake, and the gentle lapping of water turned into a harbinger of something far more eerie. At the stroke of midnight, the calm was shattered. A sudden mournful wail arose from the depths of the lake, as if the water itself were crying out in sorrow. I bolted to Fiona's side and found her staring transfixed at the dark expanse, eyes brimming with tears and unspoken questions. "Mom, who's crying?" she whispered, voice quivering like the leaves in a gentle breeze. I peered into the darkness, but the lake offered no clear answer, only a vast, reflective surface that seemed to hold endless secrets beneath its placid veneer. The night grew colder, and a dense mist began to roll over the water, blurring the line between lake and sky. The anguished wail would rise in bursts, echoing across the silent shore, and then vanish as suddenly as it had come. Fiona and I huddled together by the dying embers of our fire, our hearts pounding in synchrony with the inexplicable cries. From the deep, each sound felt like a lament for lost souls, or a forgotten tragedy buried beneath layers of time and water. In those long, harrowing hours, the lake transformed into something otherworldly, a place where nature's grief echoed in every ripple and every sigh of the wind. When dawn finally broke, the mist lifted, and the lake returned to its deceptive tranquility. But the memory of that sorrowful night lingered like an unwelcome shadow. Fiona and I left the campsite with our hearts heavy and our minds filled with questions. The lake's lament had etched itself into our souls, a reminder that even the most serene places can harbor echoes of profound loss and mystery. The whispering Pinnaseem Clara, and one summer I took my daughter Isabel to a secluded forest camp deep in the heart of ancient pines. We arrived as dusk painted the sky in fading gold and bruised purples, and the air carried a promise of mystery. Our modest tent lay near a softly babbling creek, its murmur almost like a lullaby. That first night, while Isabel slept soundly curled in her favorite blanket, I found myself unable to rest. The towering pines outside, their silhouettes etched against the starry firmament, seemed to whisper secrets in a language only the wind could understand at first. The sounds were subtler, gentle rustle here, a distant sigh there, but as midnight deepened, a peculiar murmur grew louder. It was as if the trees were speaking directly to me, uttering my name in a soft, sorrowful tone. Heart pounding with both curiosity and dread, I slipped out of the tent, my feet crunching on the needle-strewn ground. The moon's silver glow filtered through the branches, casting wavering shadows that danced along the forest floor. Every snap of a twig made me wonder if unseen eyes were following my every step. Drawn by the uncanny sound, I ventured along a narrow, winding trail that seemed to lead deeper into the wilderness. The forest felt alive, charged with an energy both eerie and mesmerizing. I paused frequently, straining my ears for that whispered call, until I reached a small clearing where a flicker of light, soft and pulsing, danced between the trees. I called out for Isabel, but my voice was swallowed by the vast chorus of rustling leaves and distant murmurs. Returning to camp, I discovered Isabel awake, her wide eyes reflecting a mix of fear and wonder. Clutching her favorite teddy, she whispered, "Mom, did you hear it too?" Though I struggled to explain the inexplicable, that night left an indelible mark on both our souls. The forest, with its ancient pines and whispered secrets, had revealed a hidden world, one where nature itself communicated in a language of mystery and melancholy. In the days that followed, every gust of wind through the pines brought back the memory of that spectral call. Even now, whenever I walk by a stand of ancient trees, I feel that familiar tingle of unease and wonder, as if the forest is reminding me of its timeless secret. Our experience became a silent pact between Isabel and me, a bond forged in the whispering darkness of the pines, where the past and present converged in a moment of pure, inexplicable magic. Shadows by the campfire, Juliet, and one brisk autumn weekend, I embarked on a camping trip with my daughter Rosie beneath a tapestry of shimmering stars. Our campfire was the heart of our little world, a warm beacon against the chill of the night, around which we shared laughter, whispered secrets, and spun tales of wonder. The firelight painted dancing patterns on our faces and made the surrounding darkness seem almost magical. Yet, as the flames flickered and the night deepened, something unusual began to stir at the fringes of our circle. While I was lost in thought, the dancing shadows caught my attention. There was one shadow that did not mimic any movement of the other campers. It slithered along the perimeter of our firelight in a way that felt deliberate and unsettling. "Mom, there's someone watching us," Rosie murmured, her small voice trembling with a mix of fear and curiosity. Clasping her hand, I stepped away from the comforting glow of the fire and into the enveloping darkness of the forest. The woods that night were filled with the natural chorus of nocturnal creatures, yet beneath it all lay an eerie silence that seemed to press in on us from every side. Every rustle in the underbrush and every snap of a twig made my heart race. I strained my eyes to catch a glimpse of a figure among the trees, but all I saw were shifting silhouettes and the inky blackness that hid countless secrets. Rosie's grip tightened, and her whispered question hung in the air as we slowly made our way back to the tent. Even after returning to the relative safety of our shelter, the unsettling feeling persisted. Lying in the dark, I could still sense that elusive presence, as if unseen eyes were peering in through the shadows. The memory of that night, of those inexplicable silhouettes at the edge of the fire's light, has never left me. It serves as a constant reminder that sometimes the most unnerving specters are not those we can see clearly, but those that linger in the periphery of our vision, ever watchful, ever mysterious, and always just out of reach.